Okay, I'm just going to give everyone a few minutes to log in and join the meeting. Looks like we might have some issues with the link. Let me just reshare it really quickly for everyone. 1 second. Okay, so let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this Monday's Town Hall. It's our 41st Town Hall. Let's get started. First, we have some updates from People Ops. We have a new core contributor starting today, Dimitri. He is joining the NIM team, so make sure everyone says hello. And this is not a photo of what Dimitri looks like. It's just what was on his GitHub. So reach out and talk to him and know that he's really not a cat. Some hiring updates. As you can see here, we're hiring for a few roles. So if you know anyone, please send any referrals. And we have the offsite coming up in just a few short weeks. This is the second to last offsite before Istanbul. So make sure you have your flights, visas, etc. all prepared, and make sure you add any proposed topics you want to discuss at the discuss post. Now we jump to Nabil with an agenda for Istanbul. Nabil?
Yeah, just a very quick update on the draft agenda. Obviously, if people still have some ideas or things that they want to propose, go ahead and discuss post. At the moment, it's looking like what we'll do is we'll have some presentations by Carl and Jared on the Tuesday morning. Basically, we wanted to keep the formal presentations to everyone that liked. So yeah, so we have the presentations from the two co-founders, but then after that, we'll probably switch into more of an unconference style, which is similar to what we did in Bangkok for those that were there, which is basically anyone can propose a topic for what they want to present. Other people can sign up to hear the presentation, and then we'll have 2 blocks of time, so two sets of parallel presentations. I think it worked pretty well when we were in Bangkok, so hopefully we'll see similar engagement and quality of presentations. And then on Wednesday is team-specific, like teams or groups of people or whoever, basically having break-off meetings or like brainstorms or whatever you guys want in the morning and early afternoon. If you need like a room or anything particular, just ping myself over to Johnny. And then in the late afternoon, before dinner, essentially like super informal, like 5-minute, 10-minute updates from each team one, just so everyone gets an idea of what everyone else is doing. So this is kind of the agenda. You can see there's been a big reduction in formal presentations to everyone and a focus on just everyone spending time together. So as I said, if there are any questions or concerns or comments, just check into the discuss post.
Great, thanks, Nabil. Now we jump over to Carrie, JB with an update from Headspace. JB?
Yeah, hey everyone. Just a quick reminder that we signed up for a few accounts on Headspace, so meditation probably won't be for everyone, but if you're interested to give this a go, please just go to the link and sign up and let us know what you think.
Great, thanks, JB. All right, now we jump over to Carrie with an update on the Q3 engagement survey.
Hi. Okay, so we're soon launching the engagement survey for this quarter. And for people who are kind of a bit newer, like what is it? I'm sure you've come across them before. It's basically like where we ask everybody, for their feedback on how it is to work at Status and the contributor experience type topics. And so this is kind of a bit important for us because in a remote setting, it's really tricky to read the general happiness levels. Like we don't see people every day around a water cooler. And, you may have thoughts about things that like even someone you work with every day thinks exactly the same and you never realize because you're so distributed. So it is like really valuable to us, the information that comes out of it. And ahead of the survey going out this week, I want to just tell you a bit about some of the changes that we're making. So the last survey had a basic like start, stop, continue format, which you'd be familiar with because we used that over a few quarters. That's staying in this quarter, and that'll be to gather the general feedback. But we're also this quarter now introducing a second section, which will be on network and relationship data. And we'll be asking you to self-report like the breadth and the depth of your network across status, and ask you about like the quality of your relationships with people across the org. And what we're doing there is that we want to understand, like, what does a real org chart for status look like? So we'll use the data that's gathered there to make an anonymized network graph, and understanding that network and how it looks is going to help us assess like the health of the network and identify like where, if anywhere, we need to make efforts or investments to improve social bonds. And that's all with the aim of like a stronger and better connected status. So we're asking you to self-report this data. Why? Because we don't really have a way of collecting it already in the background. Like, for instance, if we were using Slack as an instant messenger, we could pull chat logs, those kind of things. But we will also look at like what objective data we do have, like Discuss or Kudos, that might be an interesting thing to overlay on top of the network graph. So as you're probably seeing, like, for this thing to work, we're going to need to gather data from everyone. Whereas in the past, we were very much making the engagement survey optional, and we wanted to be mindful of your time. So I just wanted to mention it here. If this is one ask we can make of you, it would be really, really helpful if you could fill this in. So the surveys will be going out this week, and there'll be obviously a post on Discuss with more info. You can ask questions and drop your comments there. And as to what we'll do with the qualitative feedback from the start, stop, and continue questions, we'll be sharing the raw data back out as we've usually done in the past with prior surveys. But we thought it'd be fun this time to do a follow-up hangout, and that's tentatively planned for 2nd of September. And what we're going to do is invite you all to bring your ideas and solutions to the problems, and we'll also have our own thoughts too. And what we're going to aim for is like an off-the-record brainstorming session. We can all kind of bounce ideas and come out of it with a list of fixes as an outcome that we can vote on. So then we'll have like the highest priority fixes, and really then we can get to work in fixing those things before Istanbul. And once we get to the offsite, we'll be in a much better place. We'll have feedback, solutions, network data, so we can make much more focused use of the time there to consult on proposals for team improvements. So that's it. Thanks for listening. Watch this space. Keep an eye on Discuss for more info. And if you have any ideas on how best to do this, or you thinking it's interested and you want to get involved, we, as always, would love to collaborate. So just give us a shout. Thank you.
Great update. Thanks, Carrie. All right, now we're jumping over to our janitor's updates. Back to Nabil.
Yeah, so some mixed good and bad news. The good news is that we're almost done with our code freeze. So it looks like everything is done in this Gantt chart, but there are some security specific features that aren't documented here, just from a security perspective. So those are looking to get completed this week. Now we are at code freeze. So if you jump to the next slide, what we'll be looking at after code freeze, right now we can still work on front-end features. So this is an update that I have, and Corey has another update lower, so that he can probably go into more detail about exactly what is going to be audited. And then once we obviously complete the code freeze, we'll be able to give an actual release schedule for when V1 will be in the App Store. The one thing that we will be doing is having more frequent release cycles with smaller updates, just so that we don't end up in a situation where we are right now, where it's been months without a major update. The other thing that the janitors are looking for is still looking for an engineering update, engineering lead, as we discussed a couple of weeks ago at the town hall. And there is a Discuss post if people want to check it out, or if you have any referrals or anyone like that, please ping. So that's basically the security update is coming, I guess, in around 5 minutes. We'll continue on this discussion, so Corey can take on the updates about what's happening during the code freeze. That's it.
All right, thanks, Nabil. All right, now let's jump to Corey for the security infrastructure updates. Corey?
Hello. Yeah, so we changed the security updates to security infrastructure just so people can get a little more clarity as to what's going on between both of those things. We touch a lot of the different parts of status, so we wanted to make sure that kind of you can see what's going on across the board for the backend infrastructure. So Jacob's been pretty busy this past week or a little while. Completed production infrastructure for the dApps that Andy's been working on for quite a while. That's up and running. It's auto scalable based on load and managed by Terraform. It's has a sharded MongoDB cluster with automated DB backups. That DB is basically for us to go through approvals of submitted apps, as well as help the web page, like the front end site, load quicker and faster. Upgraded all infra star repos to Terraform 0.12. There were some updates in 0.12 that are actually quite nice. Better syntax, new features like dynamic blocks, better errors. It took a little work to get it switched over to 0.12 though. Jacob created the go.status.im for the Vanity Go imports, which gives us a little bit more professionalism as to what people are importing and how they import them, where they point to get all of the Go packages that we're releasing. Deployed Bitwarden to secrets.status.im. So this is going to be, we're switching over from LastPass to Bitwarden, and we're self-hosting it. So it's a much better service in a lot of people's opinions, including mine. We get to self-host it, and so we've got that set up. And you can expect invites coming soon, as well as some process documentation for how to switch over and then how to use Bitwarden appropriately. We have some improved security at status.im. So we added a bunch of headers. Our current website didn't have some of the security headers, which led to a couple of vulnerabilities that were given us by some disclosures in our security channel, which is actually really nice. We thought we'd have to redo the entire website outside of GitHub, but Jacob found some interesting ways to get security headers built into the GitHub hosting. So that's been really nice and kept us from doing a lot of work and added costs for the infrastructure there. Refreshed iOS citing certificates for another year, upgraded our faucets to LES and LES to Geth 1.9.1, and automated some CI builds for new analytics.status.im. So quite a bit of stuff there in infrastructure side. Go to the next page, please. And as for security, and Bill pointed to or referenced a lot of this. I got off a scheduling call last week, at like the end of last week with TrailBits. They are at a pretty massive push right now with some projects that hit them recently based on them waiting for us to give them timelines. So they can't start with all of the engineers needed to do our audit until the end of September or beginning of October. I'm working with them to try and push that up, maybe get it a little bit earlier depending on how we do this. But currently the process is to go through the status protocol Go repo, as well as figure out its adherence to the specs repo so they can see how our protocol works and our implementation of that protocol and make sure those two things are matching. From there, once we get through that, they'll then move into our implementation of the application and how well it consumes the status protocol Go package. That's going to be start with status Go to make sure the backend server works appropriately, handles secrets, account management, wallets, so on and so forth appropriately, and move to status React to make sure that status React communicates with status Go correctly and doesn't have any faults there. Once we have that, we'll build the whole thing, and they'll make sure that the general app security is in order so that we're not asking for wrong permissions. People can't access things they shouldn't be able to from a rooted device, so on and so forth. I'm waiting on the pricing documents and level of effort documents today that discusses the actual depth in which they plan to go and the timelines associated with those things. You can see the notes and on the corresponding notes document there. And that's pretty much all I got for today.
Cool, thanks, Corey. Thanks for that update. Now we're gonna jump to a marketing update with Johnny. Johnny, you there? Johnny. I see you're on the call, but I don't think we can hear you talking. All right, let's just give Johnny 1 minute to rejoin the meeting so that he can give his marketing update. I think he's having some technical difficulties. So if you don't mind just bearing with us for a minute. Still can't hear you, Johnny.
Hello?
Okay, we can hear you now.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah, so we've been getting a bunch of questions in status and on social about the marketing plan. So before I get into V1, I want to talk about a few things that are going on now. So yeah, jump to the next slide. There's a bunch of events in the next few weeks. Obviously, it's Berlin Blockchain Week right now, and a lot of status representation. I believe Hester presented this morning at the Meta Cartel Demo Day. Dean and Oscar will be presenting the messaging protocol work at Web3 Summit and a few others. Mami is on a panel at Web3 Summit as well. Jacek and Jared's presenting at TAG on our token economics work as well. So we'll share a schedule of everything so you can keep track. But once again, there's just a lot going on. And then also there's this activation in Berlin called the ETH Summer. It's a scavenger hunt put on in partnership with Bounties Network, Kyber, a few other projects in the space. So check. We just put out a tweet. There's a link to Bounties Network with a bunch of bounties. So check that out. Also, we're sponsoring an event, an ETH Planet event. It's a hackathon in Shenzhen, China. And our community manager in China, Steven, he's actually working with the event organizers. He's going to be presenting, working with hackers there, kind of onboarding them into Embark and a few other challenges. So kudos to Steven, because he's really just driven this. He found the event, he organized it, and he's going out there now. Finally, we've got a couple prizes in the Gitcoin Ethereal Blocks virtual hackathon, and that they've announced it last week. The hackathon itself kicks off August 28th, and we've got some cool prizes which we'll announce this week, primarily around the status JavaScript API, Embark, and some cool prizes presented or proposed by Guy Louis with Keycard. So stay tuned for more on that, but really excited to be at all these events and just get in front of a few more developers, which is great. Next slide. Here's a list of ongoing initiatives. I'll just kind of go through these quickly so everyone can kind of see what's going on. We're continuing with this DAP Integration Center. What it is ultimately documentation, tutorials, and a checklist for building and submitting a DAP optimized for status. And that basically just means a checklist to make sure it's mobile optimized, it effectively and correctly uses the status of JavaScript API, and then some details on how to submit to dap.ps. And that will be well designed. It'll live in the documentation, and we're working with B9 Labs on that. We've got some planning for V0.14. Just some general awareness comms like we usually do, but then some special campaign material for the sticker market launch, which will be part of it. And a PR strategy is going to be included in that. So expect some nice awareness for that. Some cool community initiatives. We've got a new ambassador landing page being worked on right now. And actually it's been designed by one of the community members, this guy Melvin, who's been awesome. And we'll actually launch that with like a nice campaign to try and drive acquisition into the ambassador program. And just figuring out what happens next, right? So what are we actually incentivizing them with, and what are we getting them to do, and how do we organize? And then finally working on just an onboarding user journey, and that includes swag bags for first-time contributors, things like that, just to make the experience a lot smoother. In Istanbul, so ahead of the meetup, we're working with a local group called BCTR, and we'll host a meetup ahead of our offsite, just to try and build community there and figure out how we can kind of integrate them into our offsite if there are activities they can attend. But yeah, it's nice to get on the ground in Istanbul, start to build a local community. And actually one of their organizers is going to be doing like technical webinars, and he wants to just get up to speed on status. I may ping a few people just to kind of teach him. From a DevRel side, so Robin's jumped straight in, been doing an amazing job. And he's working on a proposal for what he's calling the developer portal. And essentially this is just a revamp to our documentation. And this goes hand in hand with the onboarding user journey for kind of any community member or developer. So look for more details on this. This is really exciting because I think it's something that's desperately needed. And Robin has a lot of experience in this, so stay tuned. Thought leadership. So we're working on a series of thought leadership articles for mainstream media at the moment. So one for Forbes around the token economic work, and more general thought leadership, just to kind of get us back into the media, back into the press, kind of prepping for V1. So a lot of interesting stuff there. And then the ongoing translation campaign. Like I honestly can't stress enough how amazing Jinho's done with this. It's really amazing to see. He's driving it all himself. I believe it was Korean, Chinese, and Russian were translated in a matter of hours. And then obviously Spanish, Japanese, and a bunch of other languages have been started. So that's at translate.status.im. So well done, Jinho. Next slide. Yeah, and I think the community itself has been, our core community has been really, really amazing lately, both on social and just in producing content and contributing in every way. So I just wanted to give them a shout out, right? So over the weekend, someone asked, like, what are some of the best crypto communities on Twitter? And Sebastian, who's been with us for a long time, jumps straight in and tries and, engages the conversation around status. This cool GIF, Brian has been making these for everything, and we've got developers, Yalu's been in there. And then also Sebastian is helping identify launch partners for V1. He's got like a short list that I'm working with him on, so we can start outreach once we're ready for that. Next slide. And then, yeah, so as Corey mentioned earlier, Discover, Andy's work is now live. And so what we're doing now is just an awareness campaign with content, but then also we're upvoting with 1,000 SNT for any dApp that ranks their dApp in the store in Discover. So here you can see on the right the highest ranked dApps. We've got Maker. They came in with they staked 10,000 SNT, which is awesome. A few others, Wildcards, Clover's Network, and then we've just added 1,000 SNT to that. And we'll be pushing out some content over the course of the next few weeks just to make sure all the other dApps and other projects we work with are on there. So stay tuned for more on that, this is really exciting. Well done, Andy. Next slide. And then into V1. So we've been getting a lot of questions about this, and I touched on it briefly last week or 2 weeks ago. But there are three key areas which we're focusing on, and these are like the high-level brand narratives which you want to tell. First and foremost, it's obviously to successfully launch and drive awareness and acquisition of V1, of the status app, right? And there's a whole bunch of tactics associated to that, namely PR, which will drive high awareness. So when we want to leverage this opportunity of high awareness to then tell two other brand stories, right? We're going to be back in the news. So we really want to introduce the R&D of this family of protocols for secure and private communications, right? The work that Dean and Oscar are doing, all the research around Nimbus, storage work potentially with Swarm, and leveraging this moment in time to make sure everyone understands that status, it is more than just a mobile client, that we are working on lower level protocols to ensure the long-term health of status. And this is a really good opportunity to do so. And then finally, shift the overarching brand narrative from status as simply a mobile app to the status network. We've talked about this quite a bit in the past, but status has grown so much. We've got Embark, Nimbus Keycard, and a bunch of other new initiatives. And we want to leverage this time where we will be in the news and we will have PR and we will be in the media to make sure everyone really understands what the status brand is. And then for each one of these, key narratives, we're working on potentially a brand story. So, what is the emotional connection to it? The product story, what exactly is it? What are the technical details and how do I get involved? There's an SNT utility element to all of these. So raising awareness of SNT and making sure people understand exactly what it is, how it's used, and essentially how to get it. And then fourth and likely the most important is the community element to every single one of these. So how do we get people involved? How do we engage them? How do we keep them involved? And then, go from there. So, there's a bunch of slides coming up and it's just really for illustrative purposes. But right now we're in the final planning stages of everything. So going through budgets, making sure all of the tactics that we do fit within our dedicated budgets, honing in on the exact tactics. Right now, we've got a massive list of things we can do, we'd like to do, but making sure that it fits within those budgets and it's realistic. Thinking through our CPM, our CPA, making sure we're working in the right channels, the most cost-effective channels, and the highest yield channels. Identifying the right platforms, whether it's ad networks or podcasts or sponsorships or paid content. Honing in on that partnership list. So we'll have a bunch of, launch partners. We are identifying a PR agency right now. So we're in talks with, some of the major agencies in the space, and they'll help us amplify that message when the time comes. And then eventually, looking for production support, because there's a lot to do. And we'll need, design, copy, things like that. So yeah, planning for the next couple weeks, and then moving into production on everything September 1st. So next slide. So once again, this is there's a lot here, and we'll obviously share this out, but this is just to give you a sense of what we've been doing. And there's more. We've detailed each one of these out, but for V1 specifically, right? There's key messaging we want to tell, which is identified here on the left, and that's a lot about our principles. What are we going to say to really drive the emotional connection to the product? Identifying our goals and KPIs. So these are very high level. And then each one of the tactics on the right, so this bill of materials, will have, detailed, very specific KPIs around acquisition numbers, CPMs, things like that, CPA. So, for the brand, we need a press kit, assets around our principles, potentially a founder statement, a lot of PR and thought leadership around what we're doing, brand partnerships. Once again, this is just an example of a potential partner. None of this stuff is actually finalized yet. A community initiative, and then we'll launch a survey, right? Pre and post. I know this is very high level, but we haven't, once again, we'll share this out. And, the timing for this is 3 months, right? So we want to launch this before, we want to kick this off before launch. We'll have kind of a launch week and then a landing, right? So to keep people engaged. Next slide. And this, this is just to outline or highlight where we're going to be driving traffic, just to kind of, for my sake, figure out the user journey. So brand content, obviously we want to drive people into status. That's where they're gonna learn more about the product, about team, the principles, and then from there, obviously we'll have, status network content. Hopefully that it inspires people to join the ambassador program. And then, we'll always have some sort of CTA into the app install page. And here you can see some early KPI planning. So if we're having, PR, we want to have significant monthly impressions through some of those mainstream media channels, active engagement on social, get back into the media, have a really, really well thought out social media strategy. And then we're looking for ways to actually monitor and track conversions to status.im. And if we are going to be having such high impressions through media, we think it's realistic to then have, pretty high click through to our channels. Next slide. And then once again, we go through these for each one of the brand narratives, right? So brand, product, S&T, and community. And I won't go through everything. We'll share this out again, but here you can just see all the things that we have planned, from content to partnerships to ad platforms, looking at CodeFund, Brave Browser, podcasts and podcast sponsorships, and then events in the space. Working closely with Carl and Nabil right now, just to make sure we really have this honed in. And I guess the plan now is to kind of take this Chinese menu of tactics and then fit it into our budget. And that's what we're doing now. Next slide. Here you can see again, we're just making sure that we've got the user journeys planned out for all of these tactics, right? So once again, this is the product story. We're taking a bit more of like a funnel marketing approach. So top of funnel content, which is, high awareness, I guess more general content, driving people into our channels for a bit more detailed information, status, discuss, things like that, into GitHub, of course. And then we just need to make sure that all of our channels are optimized to drive into app and Play Store, and then any sort of like public channel for more information. And then some high level KPIs. Next slide. Yep. So same thing for token utility. I don't think I need to go through all of this once again, but yeah, you can see we're planning all the tactics, and we'll share this out again. Next slide. Once again, just making sure that we've got the right landing pages made, right? So we'll probably clean up the S&T the SNT utility landing page, probably update the homepage, driving to that. And then we've also got the analytics dashboard, which is set to launch pretty soon. And this will be nice just to monitor the adoption of some of these features. And it's all information taken, it's all on-chain data that we're taking. And I think it's actually really nice to push out metrics around SNT utility as a means of showing user adoption. So once again, you'll see various pages that we're going to be building, some very high level KPIs. Once again, need to refine this further, and we will in the next couple of weeks. Next slide. And the community initiative. So this is, in my opinion, a bulk of the work and probably the most important for now. But you'll see a bunch of tactics around our ambassador program, the developer onboarding and developer programs, and then what's kind of across both. And yeah, well, in our master deck, yeah, each one of these tactics is broken out into much more detail, but for the sake of time, don't have to go through it. Next slide. And yeah, so that's it for me. We'll share out this, obviously we'll share the town hall slides out so people can see the tactics that we're talking about. And if anyone has ideas or cool campaign ideas or content that they want to see or channels or outlets or platforms that they think will work well, please let me know. You can message in the status marketing channel or contact me directly. Once again, we're finalizing this list, this bill of materials, hopefully in the next week or two. So yeah, would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks.
Thanks, Johnny. Great update. So now we're actually just going to jump into Q&A. We don't have any Swarm updates this week, but you can tune into our core developer call on Monday where we will have all the Swarm team updates. So today we only have one question that was submitted from Status Town Hall Questions. And the question is, I would like to build a status dap that grabs Google Assistant text and it records it with a timestamp and appropriate category flags. Is this possible? Is anybody on the call maybe have an answer to this question? All right.
There are some problems with this because, for example, Google is in dapps, like they don't mix well together. There is no point of making a dap if you relies on Google. So maybe you could maybe make a decentralized system that understands the text. For example, there is a Golang network that does this decentralized processing. Maybe could be used that, or so make a new network. So there is a lot to be done for something like this to be possible. But yeah, it's possible. But as I said, you need to build a whole network for that to make as a decentralized system.
All right, thanks, Ricardo. All right, are there any other questions that maybe people have on the call? If not, then this ends our town hall. Anybody, please join into the core developer call on Monday, and our next town hall is in 2 weeks, and that will be again our last town hall before Istanbul. So thanks everyone, and see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks everyone. Great update, Johnny. Thanks a lot.
Of course. Thanks everyone.